Okay, 15 minutes. Before going and talking about the main points of my speech, I would like to talk to you about ideas first. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung said that most people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. Now, if you take 15 minutes of your day and just think about this, that the fact that your ideas, you don't own them, but they own you. Most of the things that we do, from daily things, habits, when you wake up until you go to bed, you're not acting. Your subconscious is. And it's not like ideas just come out of nowhere. Everything that you are right now is because of how you grew up, the ideas that you've been presented by your parents, society, school, street, everything that you are right now. It's not it's not like it came out of the blue. It's just something you've picked up once. That's why your ideas own you. And that's why it's really, really important that you, at a certain point of your life, especially when you're growing up, you have to start thinking about your own ideas. And this is something that I've started doing probably 4 years now. I started thinking about my own ideas and I started questioning my own ideas because it's hard to know whether an idea is really yours or whether you just picked it up somewhere. I don't know. So, and literature helped me a lot with this, especially reading Russian literature. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. Dostoevsky and Tolstoy were quite religious. And if you read, for example, The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Tolstoy, or you read The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. So Dostoevsky was quite religious, and he's always fond of Christianity. And in in The Brothers Karamazov, one of the most powerful characters is called Ivan, and Ivan is an atheist. And the argument that Ivan gives, I don't think any religious person can answer. And that's what you need to do at a certain point of your life. You need to kind of step back, watch all your ideas, present arguments against those ideas, and see if you really believe in those ideas or you just picked it up somewhere and you kind of live in them. Because it's your responsibility, really. It's not like you're 12. It's not like you're still depending on your parents and still depending on society to help you. At a certain point, you have to formulate your own personality. You have to formulate your own character. And the only way, or at least the best way to do it, is to start doubting your ideas. Present arguments against those ideas and see if they're strong. And if they're not, you have to let them go, which is painful. It's like I've I've been through a program called the Lie program, and what they did once is just write down who you are and start crossing out the things that don't really matter. That's what you need to do. The ideas that you have that don't really matter, you need to start crossing out. But the question now is, how can you know that an idea is worth keeping or an idea is worth pursuing? The question is, can you really know that an idea is worth pursuing? You have millions of ideas every day. How can you know that an idea is worth pursuing? All right, let me tell you a story. It's a personal story of how I became an author or a writer. When I was a teenager, I was heavily influenced by hip hop. I still am. I like hip hop, and especially lyricists, Eminem, J. Cole. As a matter of fact, just listening to J. Cole on my way here. And I think when I was 16, 17, I decided that I would start. I had this idea, very small idea. Decided that maybe I should start writing rap lyrics just for me, just out of fun, curiosity. And it wasn't mostly rap lyrics, it's just a bunch of cuss words and rhyming things together. And I really liked that. And I continued doing it. And when I was 17, maybe 18, I was introduced to the first book that I've ever read. And where I grew up in a small city called Ben Ahmed. You know it, it's near Stad. Books are not really that important there. And it's not like I blame the people. There, people are just too busy living. The resources there are unfortunately um, rare. And my family, my parents, my grandparents, the people I know, their concern was just living through another day. That's it. They don't have time for art. They don't have time for literature. They don't have time for things like that. And here I come at 17 years old, holding the first book that I would ever read. Uh, it was titled A Long Way Down. So I read that book. And when I finished that book, you know, when you do something and you kind of you feel like there's a, huh, you don't know what you feel, but there's something there. You say, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I should go back to this. And it was then when I had another idea. Well, I'm already writing some things in English, horrible rap lyrics. Maybe I should start writing journal. Just keeping a journal for me, practicing my English, and at the same time doing something that I found interesting about this book, which I still didn't at that time understand, or I didn't know how to articulate what I felt. So I read that book and I decided, well, maybe I should start writing journals and what I think and what I do. So I started doing that. And when I graduated from high school and I moved to Muhammadiyah to study English literature, it was then when I was introduced to more literature, to poetry, novels, short stories, and things like that. And I had another idea. I was already writing rap lyrics, and what if I turned one of those rap lyrics into a poem? Which is not the right way to write a poem, I realized, but it was an idea. So I took out some of the things that I was writing, rap lyrics, and I took out the cuss words and all of that to make it more poetry like. I introduced some complicated words to sound more literate. And I gave it to one of my professors who unfortunately recently died. And he gave me back the poem, all red pencil over it. And he said the same thing that I said about the book. He said, something is here. What if you turn that poem into kind of a short story? Another idea came by. So I started doing that. And sooner, 3 years later, I found out that I have dozens of poems, dozens of short stories that I had written on the course of following my licence. So at the end, I graduated from university and I had these things that I was writing. And now I decided, well, what if I ask someone who's already published something whether these things are worth publishing? Now, keep in mind, I only did those things just following certain ideas that I had at a certain point. So I took out some of the good poems that I was writing, some of the good short stories, and I took them to one of my professors who's also an author. And I was like, is this worth publishing? And he read them. It took about a month. And he came back to me and he said, well, yeah, it's worth publishing. So for the next year, all I did is just edit, rewrite, market myself, brand myself on social media, and exactly a year later, I came out and published the book. And now I'm gladly can say that I'm a Moroccan author, I'm a writer, but would I have been a writer of two books and a memoir had I not followed that simple idea of just, well, maybe you should write some rap lyrics? I don't, I don't think so. Now the question comes back again: can you really know that an idea, no matter how small it is going to have a big impact or not? My personal question is that no, because ideas are abstract. You don't know ideas; they cannot be tangible, cannot hold an idea, and therefore you cannot quantify an idea. You cannot say that this idea is big, this idea is small, because it, to some extent, it doesn't exist. Small ideas can have a huge impact. Small ideas can have, I don't know what was going on in the mind of Hitler's parents when they decided that maybe they should have a kid. Those were ideas. And I really don't know what was going on in Elon Musk's parents when they decided that they should have kids. But those two ideas were really, really, really impactful. One turned out to be one of the most evil people in the world, and the other is a genius. Um, well, you all know what Elon Musk is doing. So, can you really know that an idea is worth pursuing? I don't think so. And that's why you need to, first of all, question those ideas. And second of all, act. It's kind of hard following an idea because, well, at the start, you don't know what you're doing. When I was writing those rap lyrics, I had absolutely no idea what I was writing. And I still have those rap lyrics. I have them in a box. And when I go back to them, I just like, ugh, what was I thinking? And that's why there's another book by Dostoevsky. I'm pretty fond of Dostoevsky. It's called Notes from the Underground, and it's about this guy who's a very horrible person who didn't make anything of his life. He was working as a military official, and the moment he had some money, he quit his job. He got a place in a very bad apartment, and he's living paycheck to paycheck, waiting to die. And he said that he could never be anything because he was too self-conscious. And he said this quote that when you read something and you don't recover from it, you read something and he was like, I'm not the same person before I read that. This is what happened to me. He said that only the fool can become anything. Now, what does that mean? It means exactly that if you want to become anything, if you want to become a writer, if you want to become a champion in any kind of field, you have to be humble enough to admit that if you start acting on this idea, no matter how small it is, you're going to present yourself as someone who's stupid, who does not know what they're doing. Because let's face it, if you want to learn something, you are someone who's stupid who doesn't know what they're doing. But are you willing to risk that? No, people often have this idea that all I need is an idea. All I need is an idea to act on, and the rest is just everything's going to be good. I don't have ideas. And this is how to torture a writer. Ask them where they get their ideas from. If you want to if you want a writer to hate you, just like, where do you get your ideas from? I don't know. They're just there. Where do you get your ideas from? You don't know. So, but the question is, a writer gets an idea and they go and they write about it. You get an idea. Are you going to act on it or not? Are you willing to be a fool? Because I am. I was. I still am. I'm still a fool. I took 2 years off of school and I started masters again, and it was really difficult. It still is difficult, and I'm appearing like a fool. My academic writing still needs some work. My presentation skills still need some work, but I'm following through because I don't want to be that guy from Dostoevsky's book who was too self-conscious to appear like a fool, and at the end he was just standing or wasting his life in a very horrible apartment waiting for death. And even if you don't have ideas, there are a lot of things that you can do that can hopefully help you be introduced to good ideas. Reading is one of them. Because when you read a book, it's not like you're just reading words. That's what people need to understand. When you read a book, especially a classical book, a book by someone who's kind of a genius, you're not reading words. You're reading thoughts. You're reading ideas, and most importantly, you're reading ways on how to deal with ideas, on how to deal with thoughts. And when you finish a book or when you read a book and you're done with it, It's not like you're the same person. You're not, because you've been introduced to this vast, this huge mind, these huge ways of having solutions, these huge ways of knowing how to think. Because there's a difference between having thoughts and knowing how to think. Thinking is more deliberate. You sit down and you say, well, let me think about this. Have you ever done this? When you have a really problem and you not like you're doing the dishes and you're just like thinking and following your thought. It's not the same as sitting down. Well, let me sit down and really know what I believe in and really know my ideas about this and really know how can I solve this problem or how can I pursue this idea, because that's what really matters. Everyone is thinking. Everyone has thoughts, but not everyone is thinking. The other thing that helps me or clarifies my ideas more is writing. And people tend to shy away from writing because they think is well, writers are people who write and that's not for me, and no thank you. I cannot stress how writing is important to anyone, no matter what you do, no matter what field you're in. When you're writing, first of all, you're knowing yourself. Because, as we said before, your ideas, or most of your ideas, are not actually yours. But you kind of pick them up somewhere, and they're still in your unconscious mind or conscious mind. And at a certain point, it's your responsibility to kind of adjust your way of thinking. If you want to grow, of course. But if you don't, if you want to be the underground man, sitting on in a apartment alone with no meaning whatsoever, be my guest. If that's what you want, go ahead. If you want to be a champion who's following certain ideas consciously, you need to start thinking about writing a couple of things, writing what you think about certain things, planning. Those things are important. And they were important for me because when I started writing, I would say everything changed, but that's almost like a cliche, but it did. Because I took out all of me, all of the things that I believe in, and I put them into paper and I start picking out the things that really matter, the things that I really believe in, or just something that someone said to me once. And I want to go back to the Tolstoy's book, The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And the death of Ivan Ilyich is about someone, a very successful judge, I would say, who's got a family, has kids, has a lovely wife, and one day I think he fell off a ladder or something, and he fell on his lung, I guess, and found himself on his deathbed for weeks, waiting for death. And it was there where he started questioning everything that he did in his life. The fact that he pursued um, the goal or the idea of being a judge, the fact that he married, had children, he started doubting all those things and asking himself, well, are those all these ideas that I've somehow manifested in the world and became my life right now, were they what I really wanted? Or are they what I really wanted? Is my wife the wife that I wanted to marry? Is the job I've had for decades now the job I really wanted to have? Do you really want to question that when you're dying? Isn't the fact that you're dying kind of thought consuming enough? So that's why I'm really blessed at the age of 24, or when I was 18, I started, well, my parents wanted me to be this. Society wants me to be this. My friends wants me to be this. Okay, those are ideas that are in my head, but let me question them first. And when I question my parents' judgment, when I question my society's judgment, when I question my surroundings' judgment, because keep in mind, my surroundings were not, well, let's just say there are very, very few writers will ever be or that will ever come out of the place that where I grew up in. So hadn't I questioned those judgments, I would not be here. Hadn't I followed that simple idea that, well, let's just try this and act on it, develop it, move on with it, and see where it goes. Because I don't want to be Ivan Ilyich. And I think everyone is familiar with the study that they did. I think maybe 100 or 300 old men dying, men and women. So they were in hospitals dying, and they went out and they asked them, "Well, what do you really regret about your life?" And the result of this survey was, well, it's an understatement to say that it was important because it was far more important than we can ever think. Most of those people that said that they don't regret the things they did, um, they regretted the things that they did not do, or they did not try, or they did not say. That's why it's important to act on the ideas that you have, because you really don't want to start doubting them when you're about to die.